And then we brought in some American contractors who basically took over the work. And then some jobs we just didn't replace. I think by the timing, this is very much retaliation for Congress on Thursday, going through final passage of a bill that would codify sanctions on Russia, going back to the sanctions that were related to Ukraine, but also sanctions related to Russia's interference in the U.S. election. I mean, the ambassador got a driver, but everybody else... No, it's going to affect embassy operations, but it's not 755 diplomats. I think they're talking about a total embassy staff of around 1,200. And the large majority of those numbers are what we call locally employed staff. They're Russians who work at the embassy. And so my guess is the bulk of the reductions are going to fall on Russians. The Russians are going to lose their jobs. It'll slow up some things. My guess is that it's going to become a longer waiting time to get a visa. But what I suspect the embassy is going to do is it'll identify important functions, those functions that are less important, and it will then allocate the reductions so that it can protect core functions and then shed some of the support activities. If you wanted to go somewhere, just check out the car, drive yourself. I went through something like this back in 1986 when I was at the American Embassy in Moscow, when we were in an expulsions war with the Soviets, and then the Soviets withdrew the 200 Russians who worked at the embassy. And I think the Soviets did that with the idea this will bring the embassy to its knees. And what happened is we worked out something called all-purpose duty. So instead of worrying about the arms control issues, which is my normal job in the political section, one day out of 6 or 7, I would drive a truck for the embassy. You know, everybody pitched in, we got through it, and I think the embassy will show the same sort of spirit this time. And there's a lot of things that are nice to have in terms of embassy services, but they're not essential. Mm-hmm. And it also, though, to my mind, reflects the fact that the Russians didn't have a lot of options. I mean, bear in mind what Congress did was action with regards to economic sanctions on Russia that most economists are saying are having an impact that's probably costing the Russian economy about 1% of gross domestic product when you look at American and European sanctions combined. Russia doesn't have any counter step to do that. There's really nothing that the Russians could do that would inflict that kind of economic punishment on the United States. So I think they were looking around for something, and that they chose to do this. The fact that President Putin announced the cuts himself shows that they were trying to send a very strong message, but in a way, to my mind, it sent a message that they didn't have other options. And we were pretty good at cutting those
yeah, that makes sense, yeah.